All right, welcome back to another edition, Greg Pickel, of the Penn State Blitz here on Penn Live. New setup this week.
That's right.
Don't get
Looks
too
good.
thrown off. Don't stare too long into my eyes. You might turn to stone. But the regular season is drawing to a close.
Yes.
2 games left. One final game at Beaver Stadium this Saturday at noon, 4 o'clock against those struggling Nebraska Cornhuskers. Penn State's 10-2. Still got a lot to play for. They close out the season at Maryland in 2 weeks, but we're going to talk about Nebraska this week and the state of the Penn State program. Before we get to that, just a reminder to the audience to subscribe to Penn Live's Penn State channel on YouTube.com. Get there by going to YouTube.com/allpennstate, and who knows what you're going to find on there. I never know. I never know what Elijah Hermit's going to be doing on game day.
Pop quizzes,
the pop quizzes, all of that stuff is really neat.
We need people to leave us pop quiz questions, right? Is that right?
The videos that they have are just really well done, and I think the fans really enjoy them. But let's get to 4 downs here.
Yep.
And we got some news again. I don't know that it's that surprising. Maybe it is to you, but Manny Bowen, Penn State's junior outside linebacker, 3rd leading tackler, suspended for the Rutgers game for violation of team rules. He will not play again against Nebraska. Just kind of your thoughts on the fact now this is 2 games, and he's been suspended before. He missed the Rose Bowl for another violation.
I think the word's disappointing, isn't it? I mean, I think that's the biggest,
very disappointing.
The only way to go. I mean, this is a guy that came to Penn State as a 4-star, as much talent as anyone's Penn State has on its roster, at least coming out of high school. I mean, this was a guy that was projected to do big things, and he's done some very good things when he's been on the field, when he's been healthy, but unfortunately it seems like, Bob, there's too many instances like this where he misses a game or he's not in for a quarter or half, what have you. Now we're looking at the second game. James Franklin asked directly if he was going to be available for the rest of the season. All he said was he's not available right now. We'll have to see. I would kind of be surprised if Manny Bowen suits up again this year, maybe for the bowl game. I kind of just did not sound promising as it relates to Maryland, and of course we know he's not playing this week against Nebraska. Yeah,
and just so the fans know, violation of team rules could be
anything.
Could be just about anything. It doesn't go on. It goes on at Penn State. It goes on everywhere. It could be anything. It's not a great idea to speculate.
Right.
But the fact that he's missing a second game indicates it's probably something fairly significant.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you see guys every now and again. You know, Garrett Sickles last year missed a half for violating team rules. This is 2 games. So I mean, I think on the grand spectrum of things, this is probably a little bit more serious than most.
Yeah. Second down, it relates to Manny Bowen.
Yeah.
I think the loss of Manny Bowen is really a gain for one of James Franklin's favorite players. He spoke at length about Brandon Smith, one-time walk-on on scholarship, Pennsylvania prep star as a football player and a wrestler. He started for Manny Bowen against Rutgers, was the defensive player of the week in the eyes of the coaches, and looks like he's going to get another start. What does it mean for the defense?
I think that it was, maybe we didn't see it as significant at the time, but keep in mind he could have left after last season because he's a guy that, as James Franklin likes to say, is married, already has graduated. He is at medical school. I believe he's going. I don't know if they ever said he's going to be a doctor or something else.
I think he is, yes.
Going to medical school. He could have said, okay, I've had enough of getting pounded for 4 years as a college football player, and before that, he could have went on with his life and went and decided to be a doctor, and he didn't. He came back for one final season. And for Penn State, boy, it turns out to be pretty significant now. And he was a guy that even last year, Jason Kabinda was playing with the club. They had to put Brandon Smith in on third down passing situations. Bob, there was few and far between times when he really got beat. He wasn't necessarily the guy that got to the ball first, but when he got there, he let you know about it. And I think that he's one of the guys that you'll hear one of the louder cheers for Saturday during Senior Day stuff.
Yes, it is Senior Day. We should point that out. There's a huge group of seniors, and a lot of them are very talented players. But when James Franklin kind of goes out of his way to talk about a player, you could tell he's got a lot of admiration for him. He mentioned the fact that he's a player that will get up and talk in front of the team, and when he talks, it carries some weight. And I thought it was this interesting. One of the things that I think Brandon Smith has going for him that really won James Franklin over, was he was so persistent when he didn't have a defined role. He would do anything, and he would go 100%, 100 miles an hour, and he just gradually worked his way up the ladder, and now he's in a position where, I mean, he could be the starter the rest of the way, and James is lobbying him already for him to come back and be Penn State's team doctor in 10 or 12 years. That's a little bit too far down the road.
Right.
But he really, really admires Brandon. We'll see if he can put together another game like he did against Rutgers. It's time now to get the third down here on the Blitz. And is Aaron Monroe part of the future for Penn State at the safety position?
Yeah. Well, we better hope so, because the two starting safeties, Troy Apke and Marcus Allen, are going to be presenting their parents with flowers on Saturday. I mean, there's no way around it at this point. I mean, those two guys, Troy Apke has played a significant role for Penn State, very Malik Golden-like, where most thought, okay, somebody's going to eventually overtake him for the starting job, and that hasn't happened. But Aaron Monroe is a guy that they talked a lot about, spoke highly of back during the summer. Bob, we didn't see him a whole lot earlier in the year. They talked about him being hurt, and now we got to see him a good bit against Rutgers. He has to be a part of the equation moving forward. It was encouraging to see what he did.
Yeah, I think he had 7 tackles against Rutgers. He split a sack. He's a guy that finds the ball. He's a very fluid athlete. I think you'll hear some other names in the conversation at safety next year. Garrett Taylor, I think, is one. They have some other players, but you're right. Marcus Allen's going. Apke's going. It's getting to the point now where Aaron Monroe, if he is not a starter next year, it's an indication that something is just not going to go well for Penn State. And also, it should be pointed out that he's also pretty valuable to the team because of what he does on special teams. He's a pretty good coverage player. But you just watch him move. You watch him move in the spring. And I'm with you. I thought by now we'd see more of him. But Troy Apke has made some plays for Penn State, and they really value experience. So we'll see how soon Aaron Monroe assumes a starting role at Penn State. But I look for more of him, I think so during the last 2 games and in the bowl game. So now 4th down, Greg, is going to get a little tricky. It's not just one thing we're going to talk about.
It's many.
It's all related. The offensive line, I think James Franklin said today, it seems like the whole press conference is about the offensive line. The physicality of the offensive line. That's one issue on 4th down we're going to talk about. But also the tells. There's been some reported tells of Penn State's giving some plays away by the way they line up, and he had to address that. And finally, I mean, Saquon Barkley, the Heisman Trophy contender, since the Michigan game, the numbers have just dwindled on the ground. The stats are just staggering. 2.9 yards per carry. I think he's got something like 142 total yards the last 3 games. And Greg, when you carry the ball 14 times and only get 35 yards against the Rutgers defense, something is seriously wrong. What in your mind, is there a common thread here? And also I want to make sure I bring this up because I think the tight end play and the blocking is also kind of hampering Saquon Barkley trying to get loose in the run game.
Yeah, I mean, it's many things, right? It's the fact, and James Franklin did point out the tight ends, which I don't know how fair. It's not the tight ends; it's Mike Gesicki, right? I mean, they don't really play that one.
You can't really throw Nick Bowers under the bus. You can a little bit because they go to that 2 tight end package, and that never works either. But for the most part, we know what he's talking about, right? And you know what? He's had moments where he's been really, really good in that aspect, and then he's had moments over his career where he was more like the guy that never blocked anyone in high school. Correct.
And he's been very upfront about the fact that when he got to Penn State, John Donovan, the former tight end coach, said, "Hey, get down in the stance." And he kind of looked at him like, "What? You want me to do what?" And so I think they for 4 years now, they've struggled to find a way to really dial that in. And it's been a problem, along with the offensive line as a whole. I'm sure fans are getting tired of hearing James Franklin talk about physicality. At what point does it just happen? But more concerning than that, Bob, is that if there's nobody to replace this lack of 2-year now physicality, I think that's more of a concern than anything else. And as it relates to Saquon Barkley, it certainly has been not exactly the final stretch one. Assuming he gradually leaves school early, it has not exactly been the final stretch run I'm sure he or anyone envisioned.
Yeah, and let's be honest. There's no reason for Saquon to come back for his senior year. He hasn't made an announcement yet. There's a couple things that are on the table. I just don't see any way where he comes back. The question is, depending on where Penn State plays in the bowl game, it might come up. If they don't get the bowl game they want, and it's not one of those New Year's 6 bowl games, like you might have a decision to make on the bowl game. And just to circle back on Mike Gesicki, it was not his finest hour against Rutgers as a run blocker. It was pretty obvious that he was having some struggles. He's been a very impactful player, though, for Penn State's offense the last 2 years. All Big Ten pick last year. They don't go to the Rose Bowl without him. And he played he never came off the field. He started this year strong.
Yep.
His career's winding down. So to balance it out, I don't know what the expectation was for him as far as being a complete all-around tight end. His strength is, as a threat down the field, making contested catches. But ultimately, if they want to get Saquon Barkley going, they all the big guys have to contribute, and it just has not happened. I thought it was very, very troubling that Rutgers could shut a player like Saquon Barkley down. He looked a little frustrated to me. We'll see. Nebraska is a team that's struggling on defense.
So was Rutgers.
Yeah.
I mean, so was Rutgers. That's the problem.
I just don't know. I don't know what the expectation should be for Barkley in the last 3 games. We'll see. But I mean, he still needs like 100 yards for 1,000.
101, I think it is.
Yeah. So it could very well be his last game.
Yeah.
At Beaver Stadium too. We'll see. That's 4 downs.
It is.
But you know what that means.
I mean,
we're not
time
done.
For overtime.
We're not done on this new format.
Right.
It's time for overtime.
It is.
Let's see what the
we're still waiting on some questions, Bob.
We don't have any?
You can leave a question.
You've got to be kidding me.
It's first week, but it's okay. We'll leave a question for us. But I'm
Did
going to
you hit refresh?
I did, yes. But I'm going to go.
Is that thing on?
Back where we were in the fourth down, because we didn't get to it, but the tell thing.
That's good. I'm glad you brought that up.
Jonathan Vilma, former NFL college grade, of course.
Yeah, at Miami, linebacker.
Made a note on the Ryan Russillo show. I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, but that's just the tape that's just circulating now. That he thought Penn State had some issues with the offensive lineman, specifically an unnamed offensive tackle, giving away whether it was a run or a pass. And he was pressed for details at that time. He said he was going to wait until Penn State was out of the chase. Yeah. So he lost to Ohio State, lost to Michigan State. This is apparently when he came out and made these comments that, well, they were giving it away.
Yeah.
I would make an argument that James Franklin, I thought his answer was fine. He said,
I did too.
He said, do we have things we can improve? Yes. And do we have things we can fix to make this not so much of a problem? Yeah. But at the end of the day, every team, that's what they spend time looking for. The concerning thing to me was, he had mentioned they spent the bye week doing this, but Vilma indicated that Ohio State, the second half, was when it really became evident. So I'm sure it's a little bit of both. At the end of the day, it's just another layer to me, Bob, of things not going the way they're supposed to on offense.
Yeah, and this is getting blown out of proportion now because of the struggles in the run game.
Right.
I mean, this was never going to be talked about after the Michigan game because they had the big game, but right now, with what Saquon Barkley is not doing on the ground, any kind of nugget like this, I think the fan base is going to take it and run. Since we don't have any questions or comments, I'm going to give you a little overtime segment of my own. Because it's something that we didn't get to. But the more that I think about it, I'm just very, very perplexed, Greg, by what Penn State did with Tommy Stevens against Rutgers. This is a guy that's been a playmaker. This was a game where you figured you were going to see him, and we did. But I believe he was on the field for 3 plays where they used him as decoys.
Right.
And maybe they just didn't get the look they wanted to get on the ball. But then to not use him and then at the end of the game put him back in for 2 kneel down plays. I just wonder if you're Tommy Stevens, if that's upsetting to you, because I just feel like they could have had anyone come in to do a kneel down, and he could have been frustrated.
Right.
Do you read anything into that? Do you think? Do you think if you're Tommy Stevens, should be a little upset by that?
Well, I think maybe a little bit. Yeah. So James Franklin was asked about that at the very tail end of his call today.
Yeah.
And he basically said we had planned to put him in. What was like 6 minutes left or so.
Right.
But Rutgers drove down the field. So Penn State got the ball back later than expected to, and they was left with the situation it was left with. The thing I would say is that this goes back to the whole how long do we leave the starters in versus when do we put the other guys in. It's, for some reason, James Franklin seems to be the only coach in America that has this conversation come up all the time. I mean, you never hear this anywhere else. Maybe we're just too insulated to it. But certainly I think he has a right to be frustrated. I don't know if he is. I don't want to put words in Tommy Stevens' mouth. But yeah, I mean, I think Franklin also said that they used the game plan. That, Moorhead has an idea of what they want to do with it, how many things they have in the playbook, the game plan, so on and so forth. Yeah, I think so. I think to have him on the field 3 times and not get that. I mean, it wasn't. If Penn State truly was going to put him in, then the defense couldn't get off the field, and that's what they were left with. Fine. You could certainly see why it would be frustrating for a guy that's really been an exemplary teammate through all of this. It can't be easy, and James Franklin said as much, that he knows what this is like, and he knows it's not easy. But I think it would have done Penn State well to get him some run there if it could have, but it was not able to.
Okay, last call for comments or questions.
Is it a goose egg? It is a goose egg.
We got a couple.
Oh, we do have a couple. Okay, so the computer's not.
Come on, Pickel.
The computer's not.
You
being
did not
today.
turn your computer on. You're fake looking at it right now.
Okay. What do you think about Blacknall, Bob? Saeed Blacknall's a name that fans, I think, were excited about. We were excited about coming into this year, and there just hasn't been maybe as much production as we thought there would be.
I think 14 catches for the season, 1 catch for 27 yards against Rutgers. You know, he will always be associated with the Big Ten title game when it was 6 catches, I believe, for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wisconsin had no answer for him.
Right.
And since that game, literally, Greg, he has not done anything.
Right.
And the notion that James Franklin, when he gets asked about it, says, well, that's not how we kind of do our, we draw up our offense. It's just based upon who's open, how they're covering, whether it's an RPO. I thought coming into this year, he was in prime position to earn like a mid to high draft pick,
right?
With a strong senior season, and they're trying to replace Chris Godwin,
right?
And they never really did. Deshaun Hamilton is really the guy that stepped up and really kind of been Trace's guy in the passing game. It really hasn't been Jasicki. Juwan Johnson had his moments early. He played okay against Rutgers. DeAndre Tompkins is another guy that maybe they thought, but of all the people you talk about who's the most physically talented wideout, it could be Saeed Blacknall.
Based on their testing numbers.
For him to have 14 catches in 10 games is just, it defies
logic.
It has to be a disappointment. Right. I'm sure he's disappointed. It's the career that might have been.
Right.
But one of the more talented receivers I've seen at Penn State, and it's just, there's still time.
Right.
But I mean, you just wonder what the future holds for him maybe at the NFL level, but he's one of the big mysteries on the team this year.
Yeah, another one of the questions that came in. We kind of touched on this earlier, but it's actually one of the there's like 6 questions and 5 of them are on this topic. When can fans expect the offensive line to be better? I mean, the simple answer is next year because with 3 games left, there's just not going to be drastic change.
Right.
But what is your level of concern again that Penn State continues to have these quote unquote physicality issues?
Right.
This needs to see more nastiness mentality, and apparently no one behind these guys that continuously are said to not be physical enough, not to be nasty enough. No one can overtake them from the group that's waiting in the wings behind them.
Yeah, I don't know what I mean as far as this offensive line. When I think about it, the Penn State coaching staff had to make some decisions at the start of the season. Ryan Bates, guard or tackle.
Right.
They moved him to the left tackle.
Yep.
Brendan Mann, I thought, played solidly at tackle. They moved him to guard.
Right.
Connor McGovern, as a true freshman, I thought at right guard at the end of last year, I thought it was really starting to click. He just had to worry about his job. Now they have him at center.
Yep.
There's some line calls. There's other aspects that go to the center position.
Right.
They moved a lot of players, and you just wonder, if they had a do-over or if they have to revisit it. Maybe they don't make all those moves.
Right.
As far as the physicality thing, though, it is a little baffling to me that this offensive line has not. I mean, you talk about development. I thought they developed last year. I'm not sure I see that. I don't think the tight end blocking has helped. Next year, you have to wonder about a guy like Michael Mennett.
Yep.
You have to wonder about a couple of players like Mike Miranda, C.J. Thorpe.
Right.
But it certainly seems to me, Greg, that there are positions to be won.
Right.
I mean, I hope they don't go into the offseason feeling good about the guys that they're going to lose Brendan Mann.
Yeah.
But I hope the 4 guys that are coming back, and Ryan Bates has missed the last 2 games.
Right.
The guys that are coming back, they shouldn't feel terribly secure. I think the future is definitely, I think Bates and Connor McGovern are definitely 2 of the 5.
Right.
Center, I guess tackle. I don't know if they're going to move them back. But the other 3 spots, I mean, I think they got to take a long look at some other players. And some players need to stay healthy and go through the whole season. But the fact that we're still talking about the offensive line, I was sure that it would be better than it was last year. And I thought it would be a team strength. It has not been the case.
No. All right, Bob. Well, that's it for this week's edition of the Blitz. Hit us with that subscription YouTube information one more time. And then we'll
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
It's the Penn Live Penn State channel on YouTube.
Exactly.
YouTube.com/all Penn State. That's it for this edition of the Penn State Blitz. It's Penn State, Nebraska on Senior Day at Beaver Stadium, 4 o'clock. The last home game for the seniors. Might it be the last home game for a certain number 26 as well?